Hello, my darlings. How are you doing today? How is life treating you? Today, I want to talk about fear. Ba, ba, ba. Fear it's huge. I mean, that's just like actually quite a ridiculous thing to say, isn't it? But it is. It's a huge thing because all of us know and understand fear. Some of us know fear very intimately. It's a familiar. I know certainly for myself, fear has been a familiar, almost kind of a blueprint that I've lived in for so much of my life. But also, how the world is right now, how the country that we're living in, the societies that we're living in right now, they seem to be an even greater level of fear present. There's an awful lot of uncertainty. I mean, life is uncertainty, isn't it? Life is unpredictable. We kind of know that, and yet we seek security, we seek to control what we can outside of us as much as possible to create a sense of feeling safe. Because really, when fear shows up, what it's showing us, what it's telling us, is that suddenly we're not safe. And that could obviously be in an incredibly extreme situation if we're in a country that's at war. So we literally have this feeling of it not even being safe, never mind even stepping out of our homes, perhaps even being in our homes. And that is an incredibly extreme place to live in and from. But then we also have what is kind of happening right now, where how do we live? For many of us, is bringing up a sense of, I don't even know if I can afford to live. I don't know how I'm going to be able to live. The whole cost of living crisis, as it's being called, is very in our faces right now. The government and where that's heading, the people that are going to be leading us as a country, though I absolutely say they do not lead me or speak for me, and I'm sure that's the case for many of us. And it might be the same if you're watching this from a different country. I'm speaking as being UK based, watching the shit show, if you like, play out at the moment. And interestingly, the other aspect where fear comes in is just our own innate narratives, triggers, activations that bring this feeling and this state of fear present. And a lot of those are from our own stories that we've carried with us, our own beliefs around what is okay for us, what is not, what we believe in, that we feel is right or is wrong, how we fit in or belong, how we separate ourselves from each other, who we can blame, who we can shame, who has power over us, where have we given the power away, and so on and so on and so on. I do feel that very much so. The news, the media, what we're being fed on a daily basis. And obviously, it's so amplified because unless we turn off our televisions, if you have a television, unless we turn off any social media, unless we avert our eyes from newspaper headlines, from big billboards, it's quite unavoidable. It's quite inescapable. And the thing is, fear has always been used as propaganda. It's been used to control. It's been used to gain power over us. This is when fear has been put on us, has this loud voice outside of ourselves. And it's insidious. It has an impact on our nervous system. Now, living the lives that we live right now, anyway, particularly in the Western world, lives that are very, very fast, very, very busy with this over stimulation of noise, information, everything getting faster, everything meant to be done yesterday, being able to be reached immediately. It actually creates for many of us an ongoing state of hypervigilance. Now, most of us are not aware of this. Most of us are not aware that we are actually walking around in a heightened and active state. We don't really know how to rest, how to pause, how to take stock, how to come back to self. The body has a slower pace than all of this crazy, busy, stimulating stimulus outside of ourselves. We don't necessarily trust rest. We don't necessarily know that we're allowed to rest. We feel like we might be missing out if we rest or be left behind. Rest isn't seen as productive in the world that we're living in. And for a lot of us, our ideas of rest are actually more about distraction from, rather than a true, deep, nourishing rest. And it's certainly for me something that I am curious about at the moment. This sense of what does it mean to truly nourish myself? What does that really mean? It's not about, the hot bubble baths or eating well or the early nights, that kind of stuff, which is obviously really, really important. What does it mean to deeply nourish? And I do think that has a connection to how we work with fear. Because the thing is, fear is very natural. If we didn't have fear running through us, none of us would probably be here because our ancestors might have, been eaten by lions and tigers and put themselves in situations that were basically proper dangerous. So fear has its place. It is a warning sign. It does protect us. And that's great up to a point. The thing is, when fear becomes something that we start to live in and from, then it begins to give a kind of veil over the whole of our lives. And for me, I liken kind of being in fear as a little bit like being all wrapped up in rubber bands. Fear affects our body, doesn't it? Or physically, the body tightens up. We kind of walk around complaining of stiff neck, tight shoulders. We get IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. We bite our nails. I've been very guilty of doing that one. It's not pleasant, is it? We kind of grind our teeth at night. We get so overwhelmed that we're very reactive from fear. And it can really, really mess up a whole of our systems. Our nervous system becomes incredibly dysregulated because we don't feel safe. We don't feel safe to be here in our bodies. And we probably know of the main ways that fear can play out for us. We can go into flight, we can fight, we can freeze. That one's always been my go-to, I suppose, fear response. We can fawn, we end up kind of people-pleasing, we kind of lose our sense of self in that. Very, very strong. And the other thing is that fear, it literally stops the flow of life moving through us. And when we are that flow of life. We are in response to all of life. We can respond to situations moment by moment. We're not then bringing in these old stories and narratives and beliefs that might not necessarily be appropriate for the situations that we find ourselves in. But we can't respond when we're in fear. There's no juice left. There's no flow. It's almost like we're very very brittle. And with that experience of fear, when we kind of close down to our own aliveness, we don't have that available to us, we also close down from each other. Fear can and does separate us. That's why it's a very good control tool. It can make us suspicious of each other. It can make us lash out in hatred. It can make us point fingers and blame and abdicate perhaps our responsibility. And essentially, it separates us from each other. When we're separate, it's a little bit like sticks. One stick you can break very easily. If you get a whole bundle of sticks together, that's really hard to break. So we are stronger together. But again, people that want power over us don't want us to be strong together, because that's a credible force. It's easier to break people one by one. Also, the way that our society has had conversation around fear, it's always seen as very negative. I've always seen it as very negative. It's very connected to shame and to doubting oneself and feeling helpless or powerless and feeling like a victim. So fear has had a negative rap, but alongside our anger and our grief, these are pretty much very primal feelings that all of us know. If we're human, we will have all of these feelings. It's just that some of us maybe are more familiar with one of those than the other. As I say, for me, I've been more familiar to fear. And fear for me, it stopped so much of my life. It's took my voice away a long time ago. It made me step back from the things that I really wanted to do, but were obviously unknown and probably quite thrilling, but I didn't dare kind of risk that. Fear has also squished my sexuality in so many ways. Fear has also taken my ability to stand up for myself, to set boundaries for myself, to literally use my voice to express my place and space in the world. Fear has led me to making decisions and perhaps staying in situations long after I should have done. Because, fear has a lot of compatriots, a lot of cousins, a lot of people working for it. Has doubt working for it, has shame working for it, it has judgment working for it, has ignorance working for it. What are we fearful of? Because in some ways, I wonder how much we're actually fearing fear itself. Interesting, isn't it? We actually fear fear itself, because how many times have we been fearful of something and then we've gone and put ourselves in a situation or done the thing we've been scared of and it's turned out okay? Often the thing we're fearful is going to happen doesn't happen. Or if it does, we're still okay. We then respond with what's unfolded next. The thing is, we're fearful of, as human beings, we're fearful of rejection. We're fearful of disappointment and also disappointing others. We're fearful of not being approved of, being disapproved of, then not belonging, whatever we think that means, which actually, if we're fearful of not belonging, we're probably trying to fit in. We're fearful of rocking the boat, causing trouble, ripples on the water. We're fearful of conflict, but actually being who we are or saying or acting how we are might mean that we have to then deal with others, deal with situations that, again, fear comes in and goes, oh, I don't know how I can deal with this person's, maybe their anger or their disappointment or their whatever it is that might be coming at us. So we avoid that. It's very extraordinary where fear comes in. We're fear of failing, of making mistakes. But the thing is, all of this, what it does is it simply paralyzes us. It stops us from improvising with life. One of the biggest things, one of the biggest beautiful tools that we can use with fear, because let's face it, fear ain't going away. It's taken me nearly 50 years to really understand now, even though people have told me and blah, 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 fear's not going away. It's here, whether I like it or not. And I can either spend my life trying to fix it, trying to soothe it, trying to make it better, waiting till I'm not fearful. That's a good one, isn't it? That's not going to happen. So actually, and this is what I've started to do a lot more lately, is when fear arises, which it does quite a lot for me, is to first of all, if fear arises, what tends to happen for me, and it's really interesting to note, and I'd be curious to know if you know the impact it has. So for me, it's almost like my whole body rises up. It like, oh, I'm gonna move up and away from this situation. And with that, breath becomes a lot more rapid, tension in the body. I'm not grounded. So the first thing I do when I notice that and notice that state is just take a few moments to just relax into it. Relax into it. Feel maybe my feet on the ground, maybe take a few breaths and welcome fear. And what it does is it brings me back down again. It's okay. I don't have to run off from this situation. So what I'm doing when I relax into it and welcome it is I'm creating more space for fear to be in my experience. So it doesn't become all of my experience, but there's a little bit of space so I can hold the experience of fear. It's really important because essentially fear is simply energy. Fear is simply energy. So holding that energy. And as I say it now, I'm feeling that I've got goosebumps on my arm. And as I relax into fear and check in, what is going on? What am I having this activation of fear towards? If it's something unknown, that's probably very apt for it to be there. It's unknown. It's a bit like, ooh, it's okay. I allow fear to be here. The thing is, fear can be with me. It doesn't have to be the one in control. It doesn't have to be the one in charge. It can come along, but I don't have to listen to fear. In fact, fear probably needs for me to put my arm around it and go, it's okay. I know you're scared. It's okay. I'm here now. The adult me is here. It's probably very young fear. Probably just needs a little bit of kindness. Accepting. The thing is, if fear is all this energy that was blocked from movement, then it means that we have all this energy available to us to direct out intentionally, to use, to express ourselves. It might be through the voice, and that might come out really shaky. It might be through moving the body, having a good shake out through the body, putting some music on. It might be through walking out onto that stage, walking out onto that platform to deliver a lecture. It might be approaching somebody to have a difficult conversation, and it's okay for the fear to be there. I think a big mistake in our society is where we've stopped ourselves showing fear, like it's something to be ashamed of. What if we let ourselves be a little shaky? What if we actually said, you know what, I'm feeling fear right now, but I'm still here. I'm just honoring the fact fear is present. And either saying that to yourself or maybe even offering it out to whoever it might be in front of you. They can do whatever they want with that. So this energy, maybe we can change the label. This is something I've been playing with. Rather than, oh my God, here's fear, anxiety present, to, oh my goodness, there's a feeling of aliveness and excitement present right now. Ooh, you know, like that kind of kid, giddy with excitement. Wants to play out, wants to use that energy in some way, wants to release it. It's very true that animals. And Dr. Peter Levine, who's a huge, extraordinary person in the field of working with the nervous system and trauma, and so much of his work is from the premise that animals, once they've been in a dangerous and kind of very fear-inducing situation, as soon as that's cleared or they've moved away from that, they will go immediately to shake. So they're shaking out that excessive energy, that adrenaline in the body has caused. They shake it all out. So they're not then carrying it around with them into their lives, into the next moment, into the next day, next week, next month, next decade, into the rest of their lives. So bring back shaking, I think, is a huge thing. Change the name you have towards what you've labeled as fear. Make friends with your fear. Treat it with care and also with respect. Respect. This is a part of you. It's not all of who you are, but it's a part of you. So this is all hopefully helpful in maybe the rising up or the feelings of fear that might be going on for you in response to life. How we feel safe, mind you, is a whole other thing, because we have to learn to feel safe within this. We have to learn to feel safe in the container, so that this container can bear not just fear, but also our excitement, also our joy, also our life, because I really do believe that we can only bear the amount of life we have, or the amount of life that moves through us, as much as we're able to. And often when we hit the limit, maybe we expand too much, or we put ourselves in a situation that's really stretched beyond our comfort zone, there's a kind of bounce back, because we cannot hold that. We don't have the capacity. So we have to learn to build our capacity. And for me, working with the nervous system, really simple things we can do. There's breath exercises, things like humming, working with cold water, grounding exercises, compassion practices. There are a lot of very, very simple things that can become part of your everyday, that can weave in then to supporting your capacity to bear who you are, to keep that sense of your juiciness moving through you. And it will be a lifelong practice, because as we know, life changes all the time. Life is uncertain all the time. And then the other aspect of that is to face the things that you think you're scared of, particularly when it comes to disappointing maybe others, not being approved of or liked, failing, rejection. We have to learn how to face all these things. We have to. Otherwise, we build a prison of our own making. We have to get comfortable with the no coming from us from outside. We also have to be very clear that sometimes we fear success. We fear things working out the way we want. Again, because it's unfamiliar and unknown. So therefore, maybe it's safer in some really kind of twisted way to stay in what's familiar, to stay in and I say this with deep kindness, the addiction of the familiarity of fear. I certainly did for a long time. And I can slip back into that. I can become a victim to that very easily. I have to watch those places. They're very deep grooves in my blueprint of who I am. Living a creative life, creating your life, deeply bound by your values, by your integrity, by what makes you feel alive, how you can contribute to life, to the world, that which you want to see, means that we need to have a different relationship to fear. We have to. Because until we do, we are powerless. And others will have power over us, because it's the oldest thing in the world to control through fear, to be controlled by fear, to let ourselves be controlled by fear, to believe the fear. Because the thing about fear is it grows. It's a magnet. Once we're in fear, it will attach itself to everything, everything, everything. It will coat everything in what I see as like a sticky flypaper. Everything. It will shit on everything. So we have to be really, really aware of this and kind. Really important to be kind. If you've made it this far, I'm really, really grateful. Thank you for listening. I'd love to know your thoughts. I'd love to know your response to anything I've spoken on. I'd also want to just mention, and it will be in the notes below, that I'm running a series of 3 free masterclasses starting September the 2nd. The information will be down below. That will be touching upon some of the things I've spoken of today. And lastly, do subscribe if you're not already subscribed to my channel. And please share if you found this helpful in any way. Share the love. Share the love. Thank you once again. May we live with fear. May it teach us what we need to know. May we continue to expand to bear all of our life. Much love to you.